Welcome to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast, your guide to future tech trends and innovation in a language you understand. Now, over to your host, Neil Hughes.
Welcome back to another episode of the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. How's everyone feeling today? Have you finally stopped obsessively refreshing your crypto portfolio apps? And what excites you about tech at the moment? And equally, what annoys you about all the tech trends or media coverage of those tech trends at the moment? Remember, you can always let me know via email, Twitter, or even leave a virtual voicemail message over at my site, techblogwriter.co.uk/podcast. Now, as you all know by now, I believe that tech works best when it brings people together. And today's guest is doing exactly that with GLG, which is essentially an information matchmaker for companies all over the world. With clients ranging from GE and Cisco to stealth companies and startups, over at GLG they have 500,000 on-demand experts able to discuss anything ranging from telecommunications to quantum physics to healthcare. In the past, if you needed an expert-level question answered, you would Google it or search the internet. Now, when you need expertise, companies are using GLG and get on the phone with the right expert within 24 hours. So I invited Alexander Saint-Amand onto the show today to learn more about how technology is changing the way we work and what he sees at GLG that's influencing how companies source information that's vital to problem solving and increasing their business growth. So buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to New York. So we speak with Alex to talk about how GLG, the world's largest membership for professional learning and expertise, is bringing people together through technology. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Good morning. Delighted to be here. I am Alexander Saint-Amand. I run GLG. GLG is a one-to-one and on-demand learning business for professionals. Our goal is to make it possible for any professional to learn from another professional one-on-one. It's a pretty simple idea that people can talk to exactly the right person when they want to learn something from them. We're just doing that at scale. I think the easiest way to understand what we do is just to think of an analogy that we like to use here, which is we're just applying the ideas behind Uber or maybe an Etsy or an eBay to Harvard. The idea, their ideas from both of those. So we're scaling the idea of one-to-one learning, but we're accepting certain constraints of learning, like the fact that you really care who your student is or who your teacher is, and quality matters. We work with professionals. We work with a few thousand of the world's best companies or people at those companies, and about 500,000 teachers or experts or consultants, or whatever you want to call them. So we are at scale, and we've been doing this since 1999.
You really are doing it at scale, because I was reading about you guys. GLG is the world's largest membership for professionals learning and expertise. But for anyone hearing about GLG for the very first time now, can you just help set the scene and offer an overview of precisely what GLG is, but also what problems it solves and what makes it unique from all those other solutions out there?
Sure. I think, as you know, and if you've listened to your podcast, of course, there are a lot of new learning models in the world. There are lots of ways, Khan Academy, Coursera, I think even some of those have visited your show. Yeah. There are a lot of learning models that are built around one-to-many models. You have a course at Yale, and you can watch it online, and anyone can take it, which is amazing. And there are... And there's also social media, which promises the idea of you're going to be connected to lots of people. But there isn't really anything at the intersection of those. You're not meeting your next mentor on social media, or you're unlikely to. If you're a CEO who's trying to figure out, for example, how to fix your product development organization, you're probably not going to take a course on that. It's too specific. Or if you're an engineer at General Electric working on artificial intelligence and how it might apply in the refrigerator market, something super specific like that. You can't take a course on it. But you can learn those things from another person. So what GLG does is make it possible to learn one-on-one. And again, like Uber, the goal of GLG is for you as a business professional who has a problem to be able to be on the phone with someone who knows that subject incredibly well from anywhere else in the world within minutes, hours, maybe within a few days, but very, very quickly, and do that all the time, so that a part of your life is that you're learning all the time. And then on the other side of GLG's business, we want to make it possible for you to teach someone on the other side of the world about something that you may have to teach. You wouldn't be able to teach in your local market, but may have a student somewhere else in the world.
Now, you did mention there about teaching people on the other side of the world. Now, one of the reasons I record this show every day is just to highlight how technology actually works best when it brings people together. So can you tell me more about how GLG's technology does exactly that?
Sure. So GLG uses a lot of the same kinds of technology that an Uber or any e-commerce company might want to use. So some of that technology is simply about connecting people. So you sign up with GLG as a professional who wants to teach. You fill out a profile, and we send you projects just like you would receive them through. You get alerts on your phone and invitations for projects you can accept, and you can go through Q&A on your phone. There's some basic technology like that, but underneath that, we're building technology to anticipate what people want to learn and what people want to teach, and those sets of technology are really built around artificial intelligence. So we've asked our members, for example, our teachers as we call them, tens of millions of questions about what they know and what they like to teach, and over time we can make a better match to them about what's the best project for them using just, for example, artificial intelligence or even less sophisticated systems. The key with GLG is that a conversation may be simple, but allowing a professional to teach someone else something every single day in their life requires a set of underlying technologies that we're working on.
Now, GLG has clients ranging from tech giants such as Cisco to stealth companies and startups. Can you tell me more about how you're helping these clients with over 500,000 plus on-demand experts, just to help listeners visualize just how many topics that you cover there?
To give you a sense, most people know most of the top technology companies in the world, most of the top pharma companies, for example, use us. And I think to give you a sense of breadth, at those companies, it could be the CEO learning from another CEO about how to build a part of their organization. And it could also be someone who's working on a super technical problem, trying to figure out how a chemical equation is resolved. So we really span a broad set of professional questions. To put some constraints around this, we're not working on consumer questions. We can't help you figure out why Prince William cut his hair, for example, which you might find an answer to on other social media. But for a professional problem, we're very focused on finding you the right professional to help you answer the problem or find perspective on the problem.
So how did the concept for GLG come about, and has its mission evolved over the last few years, or should I say since it was officially launched?
Yeah, let me tell you a little bit about the story. So GLG was started originally in 1998 as a publishing company by Mark Gerson and Thomas Lehrman. That's the G and the L of GLG, GL Group originally. And the original idea was to build a publishing company. I was in college at the time and planning on going to medical school. And it's a long story, but through GLG, I ended up going to a series of medical conferences for what became our first customer, and talking to as many doctors as I could on their behalf. And as I started talking to those doctors, our first customer said, and I started writing up what those doctors said. Our first customer said, maybe I could just talk to the doctors rather than read your write-up. And I'd been a reporter for Bloomberg before, and I was comfortable doing interview questions, so wasn't clear why they'd want to talk to them. But the first customer said, well, maybe we should just talk to them directly. And so I started organizing calls between doctors and this first customer, and that became what they wanted to do with us. In other words, that seemed more interesting to them than any of the reports that I was writing. The publishing company had raised some money, but had also not sold any of the books that they were aiming to publish. And meanwhile, this first customer was saying, I love this idea that I don't have to read something, that I can talk directly to exactly the people who know exactly the thing that I'm trying to learn about. And so we reconceived of the idea. For those in the startup community, I think you'll appreciate the story. We went out to raise money, and as I like to say, we were turned down by most of the world's best investors, many of whom invested in someone else pursuing the same idea. The largest raise at the time on this idea, and some other folks raised money around a business called Guru.com, which some people may remember. And Guru.com was going to be what it sounds like. You can sign up to be a guru on anything. And Guru.com, I think, raised a few $100 million from some of the best venture firms in the world, including some venture firms that we talked to. And we that obviously wasn't so great for us. at the time. But Guru went out and said anyone can learn anyone can learn anything from anyone. And we didn't, and that idea seemed very attractive. The problem with open marketplaces for expertise is that you run into some real problems of adverse selection. So someone could get on the site, let's say, to use the example I used earlier, that a neurologist is from Harvard Medical School, joins a site like guru.com, and someone joins the website and says, do you think that Prince William's haircut has anything to do with, I don't know, something medical, a medical condition? Not an interesting question for the head of neurology at Harvard Medical School. So that professional may drop off. As I said in the beginning, this is Uber meets Harvard. So one of the constraints in a learning institution like Harvard is that the teacher cares about the quality of the student. So we set out in the beginning to find the best teachers and also to find the best students who would ask the kinds of questions that were interesting to those teachers. And that turned out to be our mission then and now. Now, Guru ended up struggling because of that issue of adverse selection. The neurologist drops off and the questions get worse and the answers get worse. And most of your listeners have probably seen that happen on sites like Yahoo Answers and open marketplaces like that, or open Q&A platforms. But we set about the opposite direction, which is what if you kept finding the head of neurology at Harvard Medical School and you kept finding a student who has an amazing question. And that remains our mission today: find the best students, find the best teachers, and match them at scale.
What a fantastic story there. It really shows the value in ignoring what everyone else is doing and sticking to your own mission and playing the long game rather than going for those quick wins, doesn't it?
Well, it's working for us. It remains a constraint on the business. So many people ask, will this business be a consumer idea? And I would say, first, it is a consumer idea on the member side, on the teaching side. So today we have 500,000 members, and they can, while all the subject matter is super specific, it doesn't mean that every one of our experts is a CEO, or every one of our teachers is already teaching at a teaching institution. I mean, it means from a consumer perspective that if you have expertise, there may be someone in the world who wants to share it, professional expertise. There may be someone in the world who wants to learn from you. And that is already scaling as a consumer idea. But we've constrained our customers to the world's top professionals who have the best questions. And that's going to remain our mission for the foreseeable future.
Fantastic. Now, technology is already changing the way we work, but how do you see the future of work evolving, and what kind of part do you see GLG playing in that role?
Yeah, what I like about GLG is we're creating what I would describe as high-paying opportunities, or real opportunities to share very high levels of expertise. So most of the gig economy is focused on ride-sharing, or businesses like TaskRabbit provide opportunities for people to do relatively low-paying jobs. GLG provides an opportunity for people to find a new buyer of their expertise at relatively high levels of compensation. And I think the gig economy will continue to expand in that direction. I think there's some data that say that if 40% of the workforce consists of independent workers. I can also tell you, though, that companies, the best companies in the world, are increasingly thinking about the fact that they just can't hire the best people on any subject. So in the end, you can hire a lot of people who know a lot about AI, but if you're expanding again into the refrigerator market, you're not going to hire all the people that know that market, and you have to rethink the way that you gather expertise from all those people that don't work at your company. And I think that combined with, if you go back to the beginnings of where I think technology changed the workforce, for me, the beginnings really of technology changing the workforce in the way that I think you're asking about was the business process outsourcing industry, primarily in India, though expanded beyond there, of course, over time. And what technology made possible for someone in India to do work that otherwise would only be done in your city, in your local town. And that's a big part of what I'm excited about at GLG, or in general for the world, is that you might be retiring as the head of a sales organization in Germany and find that your local market doesn't need your expertise at that point, but there may be a company in China that doesn't know anything about your expertise. And now you have a different opportunity for employment that you would just never have if it weren't for the way that technology is connecting to people around the world.
Now, can you also tell me a little more about the GLG Social Impact Fellowship Programme? How has that grown, and also what inspired you to start that programme? Because I think it's a fantastic idea.
Well, thanks. I'll tell you where it started. It started with Hurricane Katrina. Yeah. And we had a few employees who were from New Orleans, and they wanted to do something after Hurricane Katrina happened. And they asked if we could do something. Could they go down and volunteer? And I thought to myself, well, it'd be one thing for GLG employees to go down and serve food, which they did. But it'd be another thing if we could bring GLG to bear on the problems that people were facing in helping the city recover. One of the teams that was helping the city recover was the Army Corps of Engineers. And so we reached out to the Army Corps of Engineers about how we might be helpful. And I don't remember exactly the details of the project, but I remember that they were struggling with how to provide air conditioning to the temporary housing across. And I think I wish I could give you the number, but it was a lot of temporary housing and a lot of air conditioning needed. And they didn't know how to power the air conditioning, et cetera. And so we were able to find people that are experts in air conditioning and power. And that seemed like a more effective way to leverage people's desire to give back. One thing, again, is serving food, and another is bringing GLG's worldwide platform to bear. So we thought we could do more with that, and we've expanded that now into a fellowship that we run every year where social impact businesses apply, primarily their CEOs apply to be fellows for a year or two and use GLG to get better at what they do, to have a bigger impact, to scale their idea, to solve their technical problems and growing their business. And it's been very effective, and I think shows the broad applications of how this kind of model can work, and certainly shows how it can be effective when people are in crisis.
No, it really does. I mean, do you think it is really important, or increasingly important now, for companies to have that social purpose too?
It really is. I think Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock, said last week something to the effect of they're not going to invest in companies that don't have a robust social impact. I don't want to quote him directly, but that was the thrust of it. So if the CEO of BlackRock is saying he's saying that I'm sure because he thinks it's the right thing to do, but he's also saying that he's looked at the data, and the companies that have a social impact mission or a program do better. So if he's looking at the data, and there it is, we could all wonder why that's true, but he's looking at the data and shows that it is true. I can certainly tell you here that our social impact program is always one of the 1, 2, or 3 reasons why people say they enjoy working here. Really, 1, 2, or 3, particularly when you ask employees, I would say, that are slightly younger, but in general across the overall GLG employees. So we have a few thousand around the world.
So when it comes to technology, what excites you at the moment? And are you also noticing any particular industries that you feel are ripe for disruption or about to be transformed by technology? I mean, I think finance is the obvious one, isn't it?
Yeah, one of the really cool things about working at GLG is it's a little bit like working at the world's largest university, and that people are looking at amazing things all the time, and you can look, because of the way our systems are built, you can look at what people are interested in, particularly the world's top professionals, and particularly they're wrestling with about the future. So you can see all these amazing trends. I can give you a few. Some topics at GLG are pretty obvious. Over the last quarter, cryptocurrency has clearly been a topic, and non-technically, things like North Korea or security can crop up over time. But what's I think also interesting is to look at the big trends, and of course you know some of them. So artificial intelligence, the Internet of Things, those have been consistently rising as areas of our clients' interests over the past few years. One that interests me in particular is digital health, which has been the fastest rising topic across all GLGs. We would call taxonomies over the last few years. It used to be health IT as a word. The new word is digital health, which I suppose shifts the idea a little bit away from the institutional side into the consumer side. But I think that the way that technology is affecting both patient care, the way medicine is managed, but also the way that ranging down to your watch and how you're managing your own health, that collectively is the fastest rising topic. So if you had to be objective about it, you'd say that that's where interest is going globally. Regulation of those things, of course, is a piece of it. Obamacare led this to some extent. So that topic is endlessly interesting at the big company end and at the startup end, and interests me. But AI, of course, is exciting. I think within the learning business, what excites me is that, again, while there's so many ideas of one-to-many in learning that are so exciting, there's also artificial intelligence and personalization. Personalization matters in medicine, and it matters in learning. And the ability to use technology to figure out exactly what you want to learn and provide some. This is exciting for your kids. Of course, you want your kids to find exactly the best teacher. I think I'll digress, but there's an amazing. I looked at a study recently that says that in the average math class, the kids are ranging somewhere between 2 years ahead and 2 years behind. And not on the overall subject, but on any given day, the child is between 2 years ahead and 2 years behind. And what we know is that if the subject presented is 2 years ahead, the child is either confused or bored. And if the subject is 2 years behind the child, they're bored. And if it's 2 years ahead, they're confused. And over time, being in a class that's either 2 years ahead or 2 years behind consistently causes the child to give up on math. There's this really interesting idea that this person who presented this to me laid out, which is this idea of proximal discomfort, that you need to be in a learning environment that's exactly the right amount ahead of where you are. So if it's too far ahead, you're lost. If it's too far behind, you're bored, and then you're not really having a learning experience. One of the great joys of personalization for your kids or through a platform like this is that you can be right in that exact zone of proximal discomfort. And again, if you think about the promise of the massive online open course is that you can learn something from someone you would never meet, which is amazing, and it works, and generally speaking, you could find a course that's in that zone of discomfort for you, generally speaking. But when something happens that you really need to learn, there needs to be something that's more interactive, that keeps you in that zone. And that can be personalized in general, or it can be personalized by bringing you the exact teacher on the subject that you're looking at.
So looking forward in 2018, is there anything else that you can share about your plans, goals, or vision for GLG this year?
I'd go scale is the answer. Yeah. We've been in business since 1999, and we're growing more and more quickly now every year. And the world seems ready for the idea for a variety of reasons, some of which we've talked about. I always go back to, I didn't tell you the full story, but when we started this business, what interested me is that my mom had gotten sick, and she was diagnosed with basically we don't know what's happening. And I started going to the medical conferences I described, and I realized that it's an idea to have one conversation with someone that you, for example, in my mom's case, the doctor in New York City that she saw, and then the second opinion that we got. But in starting GLG, when I started going to medical conferences, I realized in particular, I went to the American Neurology Association conference, that you could actually talk to all the doctors, and that they would actually be willing to teach you, provided that you were asking smart questions. That idea was an exciting idea in 1999. Again, a company called Guru.com raised a few $100 million to pursue it. We didn't. But we've now scaled around the world. And for whatever reason, it could be some of the failings of social media, the understandings of personalization, the proof now that we have the customer base that we do, comparable ideas pursuing the same market. Whatever reason, we really feel like the idea is ready for scale. And it's part of how we ended up talking to you, and in part of where we see the business unfolding over the next few years. The idea that anyone in the world will be able to find exactly the right student or the right teacher or the right project. These don't all have to be short conversations. They can be short seminars. They can be a longer 1 week conversation, 2 week conversation, 6 month engagement. The idea that the workforce will shift. This will happen globally, and it will accelerate so that, again, to use my previous example, you can know something really well in Germany, find that market doesn't seems like everyone already knows what you know there, but there's a student somewhere all the way around the world who has something to learn from you or a project for you. Seems like an idea that'll just continue to grow and scale.
I'm sure it will. Well, a huge thank you for coming on today. But before I do let you go, can I just ask that you remind everybody listening of your website, social channels, and also contact details for a member of your team if anyone just have any outstanding questions about our conversation today?
Sure. Well, thanks everyone for listening. Feel free to look us up on the web. We're at glg.it, which came from GLG it, which many of our customers do. But we're on Instagram, GLG Careers, YouTube, I believe it's GLG it, LinkedIn, GLG. We are mostly constrained to those channels because we are a B2B business, but we are on Facebook as GLG and Twitter as GLG. So look us up, and particularly if you have something to teach, but also if you have something to learn, we'd love to hear from you.
Well, one of the things I love about what you're doing here is you've taken this Uber meets Harvard business model there and, learned from someone that you've never met and scaled it all around the world. And you've got 500,000 now on-demand experts able to discuss anything ranging from telecommunications, quantum physics to healthcare. But it's not just about that. It's also about creating something with social purpose and social impact. So a big thank you for coming on today and sharing that valuable story with us all. Thank you.
Thanks so much for having me.
I'm incredibly grateful that Alex came on the show today. I mean, I think it's so important that stories like this get shared. Because although not everyone may have heard of them before today's podcast, I'm hoping you will now. I mean, I hope that you'll remember how GLG, the world's largest leading professional learning platform, is connecting thousands of clients to its membership of 500,000 subject matter experts all around the world. And it's important to remember, I think, that yes, they're headquartered in New York, but GLG's 1,400 plus employees work from offices in 12 different countries. And their mission to transform how the world's top professionals learn and share expertise by creating a variety of one-to-one learning opportunities is incredibly visionary from my point of view. And ultimately, my big takeaway from today's episode is that they're using technology to connect professionals and learn from each other. And even after the recording, Alex spoke to me about this podcast and how to remember that CEOs like to learn from other CEOs too. So I love what Alex is trying to achieve there with GLG, and learning from each other is essentially what this life is all about. But hey, these are just my opinions. What are yours? You can email me at techblogwriter@outlook.com, tweet me at Neil C. Hughes, or pop by my website techblogwriter.co.uk/podcast. Now, as your bus, train or car gets a little closer to the office this morning, I guess that means it's time for me to sign off now. But hopefully you'll let me be the soundtrack to your day once again tomorrow. So thanks for listening, and until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thanks for listening to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Until next time, remember, technology is best when it brings people together.